Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your stealthy spy hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we got you covered. Don't be surprised if today's episode is a quick one, guys, because I don't know about you, John, but after we did our undead-themed episode last time, it's this week I actually feel like a zombie. But spring season is almost upon us, and we got one more fall episode for you after this one, so let's waste no mercy on the wicked and get down to business. Today, John will talk about the complicated feelings of a romance drama Bloom Into You, and then we'll both don our ninja gear and hunt some sinister assassins with the stealthy spy girls from Release the Spyce. Hope that sounds spicy enough for you. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
So I'm back to jump down the high school romance hole because somehow, even though I said I wanted to keep away from it, I keep getting pulled back in. But there was something about Bloom Into You that sort of drew me in. So
I've heard it seems to be a little more substantial, maybe?
Yeah, mostly because the writing was done by one Juki Hanada, who we've brought up before, talking about Love Live, Sound Euphonium, and other shows that we haven't really talked about in detail, like Beyond the Boundary, Excel World, Robotics Notes, Railgun S. Mm-hmm. So we have a pretty good writer here, and if I see his name attached to something, I'm just sort of like, yeah, I guess I'll stick around. So, what is the show even about? Well, it centers around this one girl named Yu Koito. Ha, her last name is the word love in it. Do you get it?
Whoa, this is going to be a pun-heavy episode.
Yu has always loved her shoujo manga, so she was aware of what she ought to be feeling if she were to receive a confession. But when one of her classmates confesses his feelings for her, she doesn't feel a thing. She delays her response and ends up, and drawing it out into high school, still unsure of how to respond. There she happens to see the student council president, Toko Nanami, elegantly turn down a confession. Yu is inspired to ask her for advice, and she finds out that Nanami has never accepted a confession because none of them have ever made her feel anything in particular. And the two bond over their similarities. But Nanami realizes that she could fall in love with Yu, and so she confesses her feelings to her very suddenly. And that is our basic setup. It turns into a Yuri romance very quickly. But I feel like compared to other Yuri romances, which end up being, it's easy for romance and anime to feel shallow and, very one note. This show doesn't feel that way because it's not so much about will they, won't they. I mean, certainly there's that in there, but it's a journey of self-discovery for everyone involved, and not just the two main characters, but like pretty much everyone on the periphery of the story as well. And I think that's what really makes this story really good, because we start to see, some real, actual, meaningful character development, on pretty much everywhere you look. Yu isn't sure how she feels. If she, do I feel attracted to her? Am I into girls? Am I not? I don't know. I have to discover these feelings for myself. Toko is very, very straightforward, but she's also kind of putting on this face for others to see, but she's sort of hiding a lot of bad past experiences behind it, particularly in regard to her sister, who we find out had passed before her. And she's kind of trying to take up the mantle and be what her sister was, sort of creating this disconnect between who she wants to be and how she wants others to perceive her.
Okay.
We've got Toko's best friend Sayaka, who she also has feelings for Toko, but she kind of keeps it to herself because she doesn't want to jeopardize the relationship they have, and decides that, she just kind of wants to support her best friend as much as she can. And, that's a feeling that I definitely understand and have been through myself. I don't know about any of our listeners or people out there, but it's one of those things like, yeah, I get where you're coming from. Because it's one of those things where you say something and then what happens to your friendship?
Yeah, true. I mean, once those feelings are out in the open, they're out in the open, and you can't really take that back anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, depending on how that goes, both of you want to, but it doesn't really work that way, I think. At least for not a lot of people. Some people can do it, I think, but not many. So, yeah, it's difficult. So do they do anything with that? Or is she like is this like, is Sayaka's character basically like, yeah, there are these unspoken feelings and it's could become a love triangle, but they're not really going there. What do they do with that situation without going into too many spoilers?
I mean, I wonder if that's something that becomes something outside of the scope of these 12 episodes. 13 episodes, because that doesn't happen, but there's sort of a Sayaka it's not really openly spoken about how you and Toko may or may not feel about each other, but Sayaka she's not dumb. So she kind of is like, in so many words, says to you, you know what? I'm going to entrust this situation to you. God, it's weird saying you when it's you, but it's not you.
Yeah, it's a double pun. Bloom into you and you. God damn it. Like I said, this is gonna be a punny episode, guys. But I think the viewers know the listeners know what you mean.
Yeah, so it becomes very much, this sort of understanding between you and Sayaka, and that's a lot of what this show is about, is, just understanding each other. And holy crap, we found another high school romance where we talk our feelings through. God damn.
Yeah, it's a good time, I guess, to finally get some, I don't know, romance stuff that is not only will they, won't they, but actually tries to discuss love, romance, feelings, growing up, coming to terms with your own identity and everything in a meaningful way.
Yeah, because, I mean, you got to have some degree of maturity in the story. Otherwise, no one's going to take it seriously, gamers.
Yeah, but, that doesn't mean that a lot of stories don't just care about that approach. They go the romantic route, and, I mean, we got one show this season that is going that way, and we got enough shows that, concentrate on that. And like you said before, just the Yuri aspect of it, a lot of Yuri romance in shows where it's just a side thing is just put in there to, I don't know. I get the feeling that Yuri often is used to make girls seem more, I don't know, interesting, innocent, what have it, like cater to a certain fetish crowd or whatever, and doesn't really do anything substantial with that, doesn't go in depth with these characters, only hints at, yeah, these characters are definitely a thing, but we don't really show that, and we certainly don't like make them openly confess their love to each other or something like that. And Symphogear comes to mind, I guess. I mean, the relationship between Hibiko and Miko is pretty clear. But again, it's one of those things. It's one of those things that always happens in anime, where it's like, yeah, we know that these characters are a couple, but nobody's really saying it because they're just friends. Or a lot of the show acts that way, and yeah, and I like that we get more and more shows that go beyond that. that, say, no, this is basically our starting point. This is not where what in other shows is like the finale where the characters like maybe hold hands or something. We start with that and then we see where it goes from there. And I think that's a much more interesting approach than your standard. Okay, we got these two people who might or might not be made for each other, and we'll spend the entire show to find out if they can find common ground or something. So
Yeah, because I mean that is a little tiresome. So I'm glad to see that the author Neo Nakatani is taking that seriously with this story.
yeah, it seems like there's more to come. I mean, the manga is still running, right?
Yeah, it's been running since April 2015, and I believe the next English volume is coming out like as of this recording, like next week. So,
Cool.
But yeah, one of the big plot points in this is about one of Yu's friends, Koyomi. She's an aspiring writer. Raise his hand. And Toko says at one point, hey, we have to drum up some sort of school spirit. Why don't we put on a play? Okay. Well, do any of us do any writing? No. Hey, you have a writer friend, right? Yeah, well, I mean, and there's a little bit of waffling over it just because, she's not sure how to broach the subject with Koyomi, but it gives her this vehicle to more openly talk about it with her, and it gives Koyomi a chance to sort of spread her wings into a type of writing that she's not really used to doing. So again, like I said, another peripheral character that gets some development, and that's really interesting. And there's parts of the story where they show them, reading over drafts of the play, workshopping it, trying to figure out how to write each character. And it comes to a point where it's like, well, hey, can you tell me more about Toko? And she's like, well, but again, she's not really sure how to say, yeah, I know all of these things, but these are things that Toko should, want to out and say for herself, because they're very personal, private things that Toko has only shared with you. So you kind of talks her way around it. But then when Koyomi starts like redrafting the play and they present it to Toko has inner monologue about like, how are you so on the nose with this? And she sort of figures it out, but not really, but sort of, but not really. And it makes, this situation where it forces Toko to think more about who do I want to be? Do I want to be my sister, or do I just want to, be me? I almost forgot. There's one part of the story where one of the characters, when she's younger, has a friend of her tell her, hey, I really like you a lot. And then there's that typical trope of, later on when they're older, oh, hey, we were just kids, that's something you should grow out of. Yeah. Well, maybe it's really not something that you need to or you're supposed to grow out of. And there's a definite message about that there as well.
Sounds like there's a lot that you can chew on during the course of the show.
Oh yeah, the core themes give you quite a bit to think about, I feel like. And I thought that was, really something great about it, because, we get all these other shows that just sort of touch on these things, but this very blatantly, it puts it in your face and says, hey, maybe this is worth talking or thinking about. And it absolutely is. It absolutely definitely is. Because it deals with, self-identity, sexuality, friendship, relationships. It's a very mature story for what it is.
Does this feel like it's the starting point of a story? Does it feel like, at least for one of the characters, like a complete arc in some way, the way it wraps up by its... Wait, how many episodes did it have? 13?
13, yeah.
Yeah. Does it feel like, okay, this is a consistent arc, or is it noticeable that the manga is still running? Like, how How does the story feel in terms of structure?
Well, I mean, we sort of get to the end of the 13 episodes and the show just sort of stops,
Okay.
which kind of left me feeling a bit, mostly because the thing that they were building up towards, the performance of the play, isn't covered.
Okay.
We get just before that.
I was expecting that to be the finale because
No.
it sounds like that would be a good exclamation point on whatever they are trying to say in the first couple of episodes.
But the volume of the manga releasing next week is right where it picks up.
Oh,
So
what a nice coincidence!
I might have to buy and continue reading it because I actually want to know how it goes over and what happens and what comes of it.
That's very good timing. So
good timing into comparison to when we're talking about it, not in comparison to when it aired. Oops.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but for our listeners, maybe. So, quickly, if they haven't checked out the show yet, they can quickly check out the show, then grab the manga to continue the story, unless they want to wait for it in animated form, which I can understand because that's what I do too.
That's true, but sometimes you just kind of want to know what happens next. Like me in Golden Kamuy, but the English manga is so far behind that if I wanted to catch up, I'd have to either brush up my Japanese or look for scanlations. But don't do that. That's piracy.
Unless it's not released in English at all. Then,
yeah.
Our rules are out the window. Whatever. All bets are off. But yeah, don't get me started on manga I would like to read because I am a big fan of the anime and the story is continuing and just saying Hunter x Hunter.
Thanks, Togashi.
Yeah. God damn it.
Hey, when Dragon Quest XI comes out on the Switch, there'll be another hiatus.
It's gonna be another 10 years before we get a new anime anyway, so whatever.
Well, I mean, hadn't the manga basically turned into walls of text anyway?
That's true, yeah. Yeah, that's a problem that the last arc of the most recent anime adaptation suffers from. But that's something for a different time. That's a story for a different time. Maybe I get to talk about Hunter x Hunter one day when we get some time to spare, which I don't expect, but it's one of those shows I would gladly talk about on this podcast because it's one of my favorites, definitely. But yeah, so you talked about Toko having these reservations because and identity crisis because she is expected to follow in her sister's footsteps, or let's say she expects that of herself.
That's more the case.
Okay, so it's not coming from her parents or something,
right?
Okay, so it's mainly okay, my sister was like this and she's kind of a role model or left a legacy or something I want to continue. So how deep goes it into the psychological aspect of this? Does it get into okay, this girl maybe is suffering from depression also and she's trying to find a way out of this, or is this...
I sort of feel like that's one of the unspoken aspects.
Okay.
Because she's she's very clearly attracted to you, but at one point she's like, please don't fall in love with me. And it's like, girl, you're making this complicated.
Yes. Well, it's a romance drama. What did you expect? She's just following the script.
And I mean, I guess I get it because she's sort of looking at you like she's sort of like this. I don't know how to word it. Like this beacon of light, like this one good thing in her life that she wants to keep and hold dear, but she also doesn't want to drag her down with her own personal problems. And that's a real feeling that, man. So
I mean, I don't know if that is too much of a spoiler, but how does a possible relationship with you conflict or clash with her wish to be like her sister?
Within the confines of the show, that isn't really explored.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe that's something that's talked about more in the manga or will be talked about more in the manga, but they didn't really seem to touch too much on her sister's beliefs and what she was all about. Just that she was very well-to-do, very studious, very, forthcoming and upright and, just does the right thing all the time, that sort of thing. And she just
Okay.
wants to,
So
carry that sort of thing forward.
this is so she's trying to build this image that she has of her sister. She's trying to build that for herself in regards to how other people see her or she comes across in society, in school, whatever. And you poses a risk to, a distraction and a risk to that image.
Hmm. Definitely.
Okay, I guess I understand what the problem is here. Okay, I mean that's interesting. I wonder how far they will take that and how long you can keep that kind of hesitation, that kind of inner conflict going without it feeling too stretched out, too annoying. So I wonder how much longer they keep that going in the manga until they make these characters take kind of inevitable steps towards an actual relationship, I guess, and
Mm,
how they actually I mean, they need to. I guess they need to talk this out. In a way, like have an actual conversation about this. What Toko's problem is with the whole situation, and what you thinks about that, and what her own resolution to that might be. Have they taken any first steps toward that, or is it like still this? I know what you want, but right now I can't give you that situation.
they sort of like touch on it very lightly, but there's a little bit of both sides on there.
Okay.
So I wonder. I also wonder how long this will be able to carry forward like that. But I wouldn't mind finding out and seeing for myself.
So, I mean, one thing we haven't really talked about at all yet, and I mean, this is an anime, so how's the animation? It's done by Studio Troika, right? The
Mm,
guys who did also, at least the one thing I can remember they did is Recreators.
yeah, and everyone's favorite. Oh, Noah Zero.
All right, that was a Troika show too. I forgot. I always remember that as an A1 show for some reason.
Well, I think it was like a joint between them,
Ah, right.
basically.
So,
But
how
yeah,
is the animation? animation?
yeah. The animation is fine. It's a slice of life show, so it doesn't have any like fast. It doesn't need any fast cuts or any crazy sakuga, but it looks really good for what it is. It has like a very nice sort of light pastel color palette that
Hmm.
sort of definitely fits its themes very nicely. So I think it looks serviceable for what it is. It's very pretty, and it doesn't need to be more than what it is. I didn't have any complaints about how it looked or how they executed on the animation, so I think they did a good job.
But they're not like, I don't know, judging from what you already told me about this story, that wouldn't really fit the show. But what you sometimes get in these romance shows, like we had that with Iroduku, for example, or Irozuku, I don't remember what it was,
Mm.
how it was spelled, where most of the show is like spent on the characters like looking beautiful and long pants across their faces. Violet Evergarden also did that way too much uh, to be taken seriously anymore in that regard. So I don't know, how does Bloom Into You fare when it comes to that? Like, does the show revel in the beauty of its characters because it's a romance anime? And yeah, I mean, look at these beautiful girls, la 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 la. Or is it like, no, this is just a beautiful show with effective, I don't know, maybe effective backdrops and that establish a certain atmosphere and mood, but then once you have that basic established atmosphere, then you get the meat of the character's emotions and the story.
Yeah, I mean, all of the backdrops all look, pretty nice and clean. The character designs, I feel like, they're made to be more ordinary. I feel like just because, Well, like you were saying with something like Irazuku or Violet Evergarden, yeah, those shows are beautiful, but sometimes the character designs were like, geez, guys, come on, hold on. Whereas this, I feel like what they were trying to do is they were trying to portray them as just normal girls.
Hmm.
Normal girls going through, just this period in their life.
I mean, just looking at the character designs, I get a bit of a 90s feel from it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I could see that actually.
It's a bit old school, but, very, very polished. So, yeah, interesting. But solid baseline, you would say, in terms of quality.
Definitely. Okay. But, yeah, I mean, I think this was an interesting watch, and since it's basically caught up to the manga, minus one volume now, because apparently the Japanese version of the manga is on the same volume. Shockingly enough, we're actually caught up. I think if you're interested in it, it's probably worth watching, and then checking out, the next volume when it comes out, which is, as I said, soon. But yeah, I got more out of this than I was expecting, and I think it's definitely worth checking out for some of the themes that it explores, that it explores well compared to other stories. And if you're interested, you can watch it on High Dive. Have yourself a good time with it.
Ninjas. You know him, you love him. They come in all shapes and sizes. We got classic stern warriors like Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden, jovial sympathetic badasses like Jubei Kiwagami from Ninja Scroll, and millennial fuckboys like Naruto and Sasuke. But today we're talking about another type that has gained more and more prominence in recent years, the Moe Ninja. Sometimes klutzy, often deadly, and always cute. Today, we talk about Release the Spyce, and to give you an idea about how tired I am, I only just now realized the pun in the title of the show, Kill Me.
Really?
Yes! I looked at the fucking title, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, it's Release the Spyce!
Oh, no.
Damn! So yeah, don't take anything I say seriously, because apparently I'm a stupid person. Yeah, it happens.
Don't worry about it.
Sometimes you don't see the forest because of all the trees, I guess. That's how the saying goes in America, I don't know. Release the Spyce is about a ninja spy group called Tsukikage, who consists of a bunch of high school girls, naturally, who fight the evil organization of Morio, who has a hand in most of the scummy stuff happening in the city of Sorasaki. And we get introduced to this crazy spy world through the eyes of our main protagonist, Momo Minamoto, who is a capable young woman that wants nothing more than to follow in her late father's footsteps. He was a police officer and protected her hometown from crime, and she wants to do the same. And luckily, she's basically Daredevil with the added bonus of not being blind. She has like these heightened senses. For example, very powerful eyesight, very sensitive sense of smell. And she can analyze a person's physical condition by licking them. Yeah.
Yeah, that part was a little,
So heightened sense of taste at all. I mean, it all fits with that kind of gimmick, but, you can imagine how that particular last feature is used in the show. Anyway, all those features and her unbreakable spirit and guts raise the awareness of Tsukikage and their leader, Yuki Hanzomon. But even if the decision to join Tsukikage is an easy one for Momo, she has no idea of all the trials and hardships that await her in this line of work. Because a young ninja student has a lot to learn and endure before she can become a master. So yeah, this is an original series. It's 12 episodes long. Got a 2-volume manga adaptation and a 1-volume serial novel adaptation. I don't know if those cover the story from the anime like piece by piece, faithfully, or if it's like spin-off stories. But, those things exist. The show is produced by Les Douze, who are a kind of young studio. They were founded in 2013 and haven't done that much yet, mostly in between animation on shows like Hinamatsuri and the newest Sword Art Online. But they have produced some Fate Grand Order stuff, Classroom Crisis, and the Magi spin-off, Adventures of Sinbad. Which I liked but never finished. I need to get on that.
I mean, I feel like I sort of got in on the ground floor of Les Douze because one of the very first things they did was this promotional animation for Sega that, like, it was some browser or mobile game thing that was whatever. But then the next thing they did after that was Classroom Crisis, and that show is great, and why haven't any of you watched it? And also Maggie and Adventure of Sinbad was really, really, really good.
Yeah. I liked what I saw in the first 6 episodes or something I watched. I don't know why I didn't stick with that show. I really like Maggie and I like Sinbad as a character, so kind of something happened. I fell off it. Doesn't mean I won't go back to it at one point, maybe if Maggie gets a new season or something. But yeah, animation-wise, the stuff they do seems to be on a pretty good and high level. You don't have that many super Sakuga moments usually, but a very solid baseline for most episodes. Like no off-model stuff really. All of what I've seen from the looks, it looks at least crisp for most of its runtime. And Release the Spyce is no exception. Like this is a good-looking show, very competently animated action scenes, some really good-looking ones in terms of choreography and everything. But it's nothing, you won't say anything like, I don't know, from My Hero Academia level or Mob Psycho. This seems unfair, those are all Bones shows, but but there are some others who go some of the more wild stuff in certain MAPPA shows like Dororo or something. I don't think Release the Spyce has something as breathtaking is maybe the wrong word, but visually spicy. Kill me. Visually engaging to offer. I mean, it's like I said, it's a good-looking show with a very, very high ground level, but not like huge spikes in in animation quality. So yeah, good, albeit hyper cute Moe-style designs, which some might find off-putting if you consider the subject matter of the show. But I think it fits the tone of this series pretty well. Because there can be some darker moments in this, but it's mostly got this fun James Bondy spy adventure feel to it. Even more so than Princess Principal, which is very comparable to the show in some regards. But that was also going for a much more grim tone with the backstories of its characters and everything. Not much of that in Spyce, really. And if there is, it doesn't stay around for too long. Like, this show is mostly like, hey, we gotta fight some bad guys, action stuff, lots of gimmicks, like the girls enhance their powers by biting on these bits of spice on herbs and stuff like that. I think one of them bites down on cinnamon or something, and that gives them more power, more agility and stuff like that. And lots of gadgets. All the gizmos are very colorful and designed like to pop. High contrast coloring in this show. Some girls have cute little anime companions. It's all pretty enjoyable to look at. It's like a pop art ninja James Bond show, in my opinion. Would you agree that that is kind of the style they were going for?
Yeah, I don't think you're off the mark with that.
All right. So yeah, it's directed by Akira Sato, who before this has mostly done storyboard stuff and animation and episode director gigs. For example, on Deadman Wonderland, Michiko and Hachin, The World God Only Knows, Kokoko, which we have reviewed. I think what's noticeable about his role here, besides the show being his first full director gig, is he also did a lot of the other stuff on this show as well, like storyboards for several episodes. He directed several episodes and was the animation director on the final 12th one. He also worked on the opening and ending. And man, talking about something that pops. Not only is that OP song a fucking banger for the ages, but it also looks really cool.
It does.
It's one of those OPs that gets you immediately in a good mood and hype for the show, just with very simple but very very simple lyrics that really draw you in and animate you to sing along and jam. And it's good stuff. And like I said, the visuals also really pop in that. It's like, hey, here's this very colorful thing. Here are all these characters thrown at you. Don't they look cute? Don't they look like they're having cool adventures? This is our show. This is what you're gonna get. If you think that looks cool, check it out. So yeah, that's basically what the OP is selling. And I think it's doing a pretty good job at immediately telling the viewer what the show is about.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was, I think it was probably one of my favorite opening sequences of the season. Because it just immediately gets you, and you're like, oh, yeah, I can jam to this. Let's go.
Yeah, and then by the end it gets like this really, really powerful drum.
Yeah.
Gets to a very high frequency. And you're like, holy shit, this is going places. Yeah, I really liked it. The script of the show is written by Takahiro, only single name. I guess it's a pen name.
Yeah, I was trying to look up info about that, and that's the name.
But yeah, I didn't know that. But he's the. I mean, we haven't talked about the show on our show, even though I watched it. But he's the mangaka what did Akamega Kill, a series that I ended up liking a lot more than I expected to. I thought it was gonna be this hyper trash, dark, edgy assassin anime, and there's definitely that in there as well. But I found it to be very enjoyable. It had some really great action scenes and some cool characters. So yeah, good stuff there.
I had thought about checking that show out at some point.
I think the only problem is I'm not sure. I think the show does its own ending. I am not sure that the manga ends the same way the show does. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like the show is very much doing its own thing the way it ends. But yeah, I'd have to look that up. But I enjoyed my time with it. I found it to be very enjoyable. He also wrote scripts for the anime Samurai Flamenco, which I heard is a great thing, especially if you like Kamen Rider and stuff. I only watched like 1 or 2 episodes and didn't quite get into it, but I hear that show goes places. Yeah, I heard it gets really, really funky and weird, and just like it's basically like 3 or 4 different shows during its runtime or something.
Jeez.
So yeah, that sounds really interesting. Maybe, and it's not a very long show. I think the only misgivings about it were the production side of things. I think it was done by Manglobe and something. It didn't look really good, really janky.
Yeah, Takahiro also did the writing on a lot of the Yuna Yuki is a Hero series. And speaking of shows that go places, that is not your typical magical girl show.
Never checked that show out, but I've seen videos that look really good in terms of animation.
It gets real depressing real quick.
Okay. Well, so Madoka style, yes?
But unlike Madoka, there's actually, a silver lining on the dark cloud that is the story.
There's a silver lining in Madoka at the very end, and then the 3rd movie ruins it all.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but all right.
One of the other writers of this show, though, is Oi Akashiro, who's done other stuff like Katana Maidens, which I kind of bounced off of, Toji no Miko. It's started off all right, but Killing Bites, your favorite. Konosuba.
I wouldn't say favorite, but
your absolute favorite.
Yes, I admit it. I enjoyed that show a lot.
Also did some writing on Konosuba. The adaptation of the first Danganronpa game, and Classroom of the Elite, which I'm actually currently kind of watching on the side because I've dropped so many shows this season. And that show has been interesting. So there's some good writing there too. So
yeah, I'd say those two did a good job at dishing out a fast-paced, action-packed, mostly lighthearted ninja spy romp. For an original anime project, this is a very good, tight story with a solid arc for at least its 2 main characters. And, the way it wraps up is very satisfying in a way, kind of bittersweet, but still very satisfying. And, I felt like there was room to do more with some of the characters, definitely. But I think they focused on the right aspects of the story and on the right characters, for these 12 episodes. Don't go into Release the Spyce expecting some big, deep, dramatic story. This is a very G.I. Joe-ish thing with a bunch of cute girls who fight an evil organization who wants to take over the world, basically.
Mm.
And
it's predictable.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. It's like we said, it's very competently directed, very competently written. The first couple of episodes are about Momo going through her training, like having to get a grasp on what it means to be, a spy, getting to peak physical condition to be able to handle any mission, and then once they get to the actual mission, she has to learn what is the most important thing. How do you handle when a mission goes like awry, and when do you follow your leader? When do you improvise? What do you have to do? What's the best course of action? And yeah, that's a pretty interesting part. It's nice to see her, struggling with that in the beginning and not being like this Mary Sue character who easily adapts to all of it. She definitely has her struggles, has trouble. What also plays into that is that she has kind of feelings for her mentor, for Hanzo. I mean, everyone in the show does, really. Like, not everyone for Hanzo, but everyone in the show, like, there are 3 pairs of girls in this, basically. And every student wants to bang their sensei, their mentor. That's how it is. It's really every single one. There's no way talking about it. It's like all of these girls are basically a couple and want to bang each other. And Momo is different, and her feelings for Hanzo get her a bit distracted, and she wants to live up to her mentor's expectation, and wants to be the best student she can be, and sometimes gets a bit overzealous, and actually that becomes a detracting factor, and she hinders her improvement, and so on. So she has to work that out, and I think that's one of the strongest part of the show, like her actually realizing, her actually trying to understand what it means to be a good student, what it means to be the best. I don't want to say tool. That's kind of, I don't know, that sounds kind of demeaning, but how she can be the best for the job, basically.
How she can be most useful.
Yes, how she can be most useful to the group, to her sensei, to everyone, and become a more fulfilled person, I guess, too. In terms of base story and plots, there are some twists and turns here and there, but the outcome of those, like John already said, is mostly predictable, which doesn't mean they're boring. It's just a bit by the book in that regard. Like,
I mean, when it was airing, I had a moment where we were talking, and I was like, what about this? And you were like, oh, come on. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's like some of those twists are like, okay, I already see where this is going, and the show doesn't really try to talk around that, and it's all wrapped up in the course of an episode, but there's a pretty big thing happening at the end, but that again is pulled off in a way that you can see a lot of hints that there's something else going on, and it's like, okay, why would that character suddenly behave that way? There hasn't been no like little hints dropped that character would be the way she's acting right now. So yeah, I don't want to give it away, but because I think just in terms of how it's played out is interesting enough, but it's still, you don't, what is happening at the end, you don't really buy into it. And the reservations, if you have reservations, they will be rewarded. So yeah, most of the entertainment in the show is gained from the action naturally from the fights because they look good. Character-wise, it's from Momo becoming friends with the other girls and hanging out with them. There's a lot of comedy happening in that when it comes to those scenes. But, there's also some character building for the other girls naturally. Like pretty much every girl gets a spotlight episodes where we learn something about her background and each team's relation among the team itself, like each student's relation to their mentor and how that plays into the team dynamic and everything. And it makes us understand these characters better, and it's all pretty well realized and endears those characters to you. Mm-hmm. And there's some, like I mentioned before, there is some darker background stuff that gets revealed later on, but that never gets so heavy that it drags the show down or turns it into a serious drama, in my opinion. Although I would say there was a surprising amount of blood in this show.
Yeah.
At least at some point, which I kind of didn't see coming, judging from the tone and look of the show before that. But some episodes don't hold back, which was cool, I guess. I didn't expect it, but it was a welcome surprise. There's enough interesting stuff in here that's happening. The dynamic between Momo and her sensei alone is good stuff. And then, you get to the deeper plot with Morio and everything, and there are enough cool things happening, cool action set pieces, and cool fight choreography and everything to keep you engaged. And like I said, most of the characters are pretty damn sympathetic, and it's nice to spend some time with them. Like I said, there are also a lot of jokes. Not all of them land, of course, but they also always help to bring the show back to its lighthearted roots, after it got a bit darker maybe. But that also means there is not that much emotionally gripping stuff here. Like one or two scenes maybe, like the episode with Goe and Hatsume is probably the most engaging stuff in that regard, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
When that certain relationship comes to a clash because for a certain reason, that was a very intense scene. Mm. And and I liked it. It was also really well animated, and there was some good emotion. There was a good emotional beat, and I think that's one of the strongest scenes in the show. There's a development, like I mentioned at the end, where things seem to get way too real for a moment. For Momo and Hanzo, that's also pretty good. Just from the way that it's played and in regards to the relationship of those two characters. Aside from that, it's mostly fluffy, good action times. And maybe for some of you, it might be a bit too flat, depending on what you expect from this show. It's not, flat doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just like, okay, aside from the action beats, there's maybe not that much to latch onto. Just, emotional-wise, character-wise. All sympathetic characters, all pretty neat just in terms of how they develop, even though it's somewhat limited way. But it's nothing super emotionally deep or, I don't know, something that gets you really riled up in one way or another. Like, for example, if you want to see suffering people get out of there and just root for them, get out of a certain situation and just root for them, like, for example, in Made in Abyss, or you're just swallowed up by a cascading vortex of emotions in every episode, like A Place Further Than the Universe, which I think that's what that show was for you.
Oh, yeah.
So, Release the Spyce doesn't really have that. It's just a fun action show, and that's what you get. And, before going in, you should be aware of that. But that's not really a bad thing, as long as the show is entertaining, and which it is. I compared the show earlier to Princess Principal. I would say I dug the emotional weight of that show a bit more, but it also went a bit too far in the other direction sometimes by like playing up the drama and dark tones to a ridiculous amount, so that you couldn't take it all that seriously anymore because it was like being a bit too edgy. But overall, I think just from an emotional side of things, I was more grabbed by that show than this one. But I was still thoroughly entertained by this one. John, what were your highlights in the show? Like, what was the thing you enjoyed the most, or story aspect, character dynamic, what have you?
I mean, all the story beats I enjoyed were spoilers, so but the dynamic between Yuki and Momo in particular was pretty strong. And the fact that we got to see Momo actually grow and become the ninja girl she wanted to be, more than just, oh, I can pick this up and do this immediately. Like
Mhm.
it gave weight to her character development and made her more interesting, I feel like.
Yeah, she has to work for it, and she has to suffer, and she has to sacrifice.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's some weight to that, definitely.
And the fact that she wants to, was it her mother or her father? Like one of them
Father.
was her father was a cop, and she wanted to follow in those footsteps. And she, in this, the confines of the story, sort of kind of like sidesteps that, but sort of gets to where she wants to be. So it's still pretty neat.
One thing that weirded me out a bit is the other townspeople of Sorasaki are prominently featured in the OP, but they barely appear in these episodes. Like pretty much all of these episodes are focused on Tsukikage and Morio, and we get some side appearances of these characters, and there's this I think, was it a policewoman that's also like kind of a friend slash inspiration to Momo as well, and she appears sometimes. But I always expected, like, okay, well, some of these characters will be more relevant to the story, which never happens. So I guess it's like,
Yeah, that's kind of a letdown.
yeah, that's the one thing in the OP that didn't really like live up to, or promise something that the show didn't like pay off, which was a bit weird. Like, I expected the girls work together with some of the townsfolk or something, but I guess it was supposed to be to set the tone of like, okay, this is about Momo wanting to protect these people, this town, and they do some establishing shots in the first couple of episodes where she runs past all these people and greets them, and you get the feeling like, okay, she knows all of them. She has a, she comes across them every day, and they have kind of a passing relationship and everything. But it's like, okay, I expected maybe to see her engage with those people a bit more and give the city itself and its population, its side characters, a bit more substance, a bit more grip. And that didn't really happen. Maybe not enough space in 12 episodes for that as well.
Mm.
Maybe would have needed 24 for that. But who knows? Maybe then the show would have dragged or something. But yeah, that was kind of weird to me. The other weird thing, which I don't know if you have an answer to that. Why did they make such a big deal about hiding the face of the main bad lady for such a long time?
Yeah, I
I don't
have an
get
answer
it.
for you.
I was expecting. I mean, maybe that's was the intention. Like, okay, maybe this is gonna turn out to be a character we know. Like the head of Morio is one of those characters, and actually, I expected one of the senior members of Tsukikage, who is still working at the bar. I forgot her name. Who was the mentor of Hatsume? You know what I mean?
Katrina.
Yeah, Katrina. I expected her to be the bad guy because of this. I was like, okay, they're making such a big deal, and out of not showing that bad lady's face, they make such a big deal out of that. So it's got to be a person we know. And the only person who could be that would be Katrina, because she's old enough to be that and has been around long enough to play a long game. And then suddenly, nope. At the end of one episode, we suddenly see her face. And it's a lady we have never met before. It's like, what?
Yeah,
Why did you spend like 5 or 6 episodes not showing her face? It doesn't matter. We have never met her. Really weird. It's like they were trying to set up this red herring and then didn't really do anything with that. Like, I don't know. That was really weird to me.
I don't understand it either, man. I remember getting to that point and thinking the same, like, wait, huh?
Yeah.
Who? What?
Okay.
Why? Huh?
All right. I guess she's the bad guy. But that's it.
Or excuse me, we're an anime podcast. Nani?
But yeah, this was one of the weird aspects of the show. Also a thing that, maybe where the show falls a bit short is its bad guys. I mean, they're enjoyable, most of them anyway, but they're like really one note. Like really one note characters. Like I said, it's kind of G.I. Joe-ish, at least when it comes to the villains. It's not like they're all like sinister. I'm gonna take over the world. I'm the most evil person there is. That's not it, but they don't really do much with those, except for maybe one of them. But yeah, that's what it is. And regardless of some of its flaws, I think it's a great show to watch on a weekly basis or binge it either way, which, by the way, you can do on High Dive and Verve, apparently, at least in the US. It's nothing super special, but it's a tightly written show with sympathetic characters, a pretty eventful story, and good action and fight scenes. If you're in the mood for a fun little action adventure, I'd say give it a go. Just don't expect anything grandiose. The OP is a great indicator to what that show is about. If you like what you see in there, give it a go. If you're on the hunt for something more substantial in the more action realm, maybe try Princess Principal instead. Mm-hmm. But if you want this like super colorful, poppy, cute spy action adventure, I think this is not a show that will disappoint you. And it's a short time. It's not a big time investment. Either way, we had a good time with this one and wouldn't mind getting a second season, I think. Although I don't know how likely that is, since it feels like they told the story they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And the ending is a pretty solid conclusion to Momo's arc that doesn't really need to be picked up again. So yeah, I think all around, that's also one of the strong points. It's a satisfying ending and feels like there are no really any loose threads dangling in the air. So yeah, I think we can be fine with this as a little short original anime that was enjoyable to watch. Doesn't have that much substance to it, but it doesn't really need to. It's entertaining the way it is. And yeah, I would say if you're in the mood for that, give it a go. So yeah, anyway, see you guys in 2 weeks. And also, spa-pa-pa-ra-pa, bitches! And that is a wrap on the 17th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and some interesting articles linked in our episode release posts. Follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze. We tweet regular updates and fun anime-related stuff there. Leave us comments and questions on Facebook and our YouTube channel, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Macht's gut.
So long, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
A superhuman samurai cyber squad
with a special signature to save our souls.